What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some of the worst versus best examples of route running. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things, but also, fellas, if you are a wide receiver and you would like a daily training schedule to follow with the exact gym exercises you should be doing and on-field drills you should be doing, check out that very first link in the description below for our ultimate 8-week wide receiver workout plan. What you'll get access to is 2 months of daily gym and field workouts that wide receivers can do, entirely mapped out with examples of each exercise and the exact sets and reps to do. So check out that very first link below, fellas, if you're interested and you guys want to get on our 8-week schedule. Let's get started with this video. So how this video is going to go down is I'm going to show a bad example of a rep where it's a run-on-one situation, man coverage situation, working a specific concept, and then I'm going to show a good example of the exact same situation and how you should run the route. Okay, so this first example here, this wide receiver is going to be running a 10 to 12 yard dig route versus this inside shade press coverage DB. So first thing off the line of scrimmage, before you decide how you're going to run the route, you have to identify 3 specific things about the DB. First thing is you have to identify his leverage, because these 3 specific things tell you how you are going to run the route. So his leverage is inside shade, right? That means he's lined up. The middle of his body is even with your front foot. Number 2, you have to identify how close or how far he is. In this specific situation, he's right up on the line of scrimmage in press, and then you want to identify if it's man or if it's zone. Now, when it's one-on-ones, that's a pretty easy one. The third one, it's obviously man coverage, but in a real game scenario, they could throw zone in there. So it's inside shade, right up on the line, press man-to-man coverage. So let's watch how this wide receiver runs this route. So what he does is something that we always talk about on this page that you should never do, and that is force the inside release. Now, this wide receiver ends up making a hell of a catch on this play, but he's not open. That's not a good route. That's not separation. Honestly, he just got lucky with the diving catch, but this DB was in a good position to make a play, and this honestly wasn't the best DB technique. You guys cannot rely on a DB just being slower than you or not having as good of technique as you. You need to run a technically sound route, because a technically sound route is what's going to get you open against a DB who's actually talented and knows what to do. So when he's inside shade, his whole goal is to prevent the inside. Your pre-snap process tells you that. You know before the ball is even snapped what that DB is going to do. He lines up inside shade press, and yes, there are times where a DB can disguise it and try to get creative, but for the most part, he's inside shade press. He's trying to take away the inside route. He doesn't want you to run a slant, doesn't want you to run a dig, a post. Force everything to the outside because he has help to the outside. Now, you might think, well, he doesn't have help to the outside. It's man-to-man coverage. His help is the sideline. The sideline is probably his biggest help, because if you run out of bounds, you're out of the play. So as a wide receiver, what guys will do is exactly what this wide receiver tries to do. They'll try to give a little fake to the outside, then just immediately cross this DB's face. Now, this wide receiver maybe has an easier time to do that because this is the Canadian Football League, and they can move they almost get like a running start into their routes. It's kind of crazy to play DB in the CFL because of that. So they get a little bit of an advantage here. But if you're coming right off the line, dead stop, and you have to try to cross this DB's face when he's inside shade, he's not going to let you do it if he's disciplined. He's going to keep his leverage, he's going to keep his feet moving, and he's going to seal off the inside. So one of 2 things will happen. You either won't get off the jam, or you will get forced all the way to the inside. And even if, when you're getting forced to the inside like this wide receiver is doing, even if you get some separation and try to stack, you're leaving that DB right where we have to break, fellas. So please do not force the release against inside shade press. You are better off taking what he gives you with an outside release. Your separation is going to come at the top of the break if you have a plan. And that's what this next clip we are going to showcase. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. Again, not the greatest DB technique in the world. If this DB would have been a little bit more patient and kept his leverage, this route would have been dead from the start. We cannot force the inside release when I have inside shade press on any route, fellas, unless it's a weird situation where it is a mandatory inside release, okay? So now, next example here, DB's inside shade press. It's the same pre-snap process that we talked about. We come up and we see what? Okay, inside shaded, he's pretty much right up on the line of scrimmage in press, man-to-man coverage. That tells you how you're going to run your route. So that should, again, and there are a million different press releases you can use, but that should be a trigger in your mind. Okay, my release is going to attack his leverage to the inside. I'm going to try to get him to hold to the inside, and I'm going to take an outside release. And then you got to have a plan at the top of the break. And this might seem like a lot to think about, and it is a lot to think about, but you can't think about it in a live game scenario. You have to do the rep work. You have to rep it out constantly. You have to be going over these situations in your head on a day-to-day basis, fellas, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to execute it on the field at a high speed. You'll be able to execute it, but you'll be executing it at a slow speed because you're overthinking it. We have to play fast at the wide receiver position, and this stuff has to be automatic. And that's why that pre-snap process is so important. So let's watch what this wide receiver does. He attacks the DB's leverage, takes the outside release, and he's able to stack, gives a move, and you see the separation he's able to get. He's able to get open, and he is able to keep spacing on the play. That's a big one for not forcing the inside release. It's not only the fact that, okay, you're probably, if you force the inside release, this DB probably won't even let you off the line. He'll just get hands on you because that's his responsibility. It's also a spacing thing. Because if you try to force that inside release and try to run around him and then break off on a dig, and let's say you end up running this route, you're on the top of the numbers, and let's say you end up catching this thing on the hash. That's one of the things that pisses me off the most about one-on-ones is receivers will think they ran a good route. They'll start at the middle of the numbers and they'll catch the ball in like the opposite hash. It's like in a real game, number one, you're not getting there that fast. Number two, that's not going to work. You have other receivers on the play running other routes. And if your spacing is off on your route, you will affect the entire play concept because that's how play concepts work. Play concepts are trying to isolate defenders. They're trying to make defenders pick a certain route, especially in zone, so you can it sets your route up to be open in that specific play, if you will. It's simple terms. So you cannot mess up the spacing by forcing an inside release. So this wide receiver doesn't do that. He attacks his leverage, and when he makes this break, he is at the top of the numbers. It is no different or like middle of the numbers, but pretty close to the top of the numbers. It's as if this DB was in zone and he just ran straight, which is how the play is drawn up, and that is exactly how I have to run my route. Now, I talk a lot about having a plan at the top of the break, right? And that's like what you should decide with your pre-snap process. It's got to be automatic. You come up to the line of scrimmage, you see inside shade press, you got to run a dig. Okay, I'm thinking I'm going to give him a release off the line that's good, that I'm comfortable with, that I like, and there's no wrong answer as long as it's keeping the timing with the play. A lot of guys like to do this fancy stuff that takes like 10 seconds off the line of scrimmage. That's not going to work in every situation, fellas, so you need to have a plan when you got to get off the ball fast. That attacks his leverage. Now your plan is, okay, I'm going to work outside. My goal is to stack him and give him a move so I could lose him at the break. Or if I work upfield and he's right on my hip, I put the brakes on and I slip back underneath him and run this dig. Like I do that throw by move. So I'm still able to get space, even if he plays it well, and I keep spacing on the play. It's about separation and spacing when it comes to the top of the route. Okay, fellas? So that is how you would run that. And does this only go for a dig route, or could this also be exactly how you'd run like an 8-yard dig, a curl, or a post? It's exactly how you would run those, fellas. It's based on inside breaking or outside breaking, not necessarily a type of route, if you will. So let's play this again, full speed. Great job by this wide receiver attacking leverage, working to the outside, fighting those hands, getting skinny, and winning on that dig. Okay, so now this next example I want to talk about here is a slant route. So this slant route, now let's talk about pre-snap process here because this one's a little bit different, right? This is the same type of pre-snap look. We got inside shade DB, middle of his body is lined up with my front foot, so we know that that's inside shade. He's in man-to-man coverage. He's pressed up pretty close, about a yard away, but he has to run a slant route. So this is not a route where you would want to attack the leverage and then try to stack and then cut across. And on this route, since he's pressed up and since the route is probably under 5 yards, 5 yards or less, you don't have to worry about attacking his leverage. You would want to flip his hips so we could slip underneath. That's kind of a rule of thumb, I would say. When you have inside shade press coverage and you have to run a route that's 5 yards or less, your goal should be to flip his hips off the line and slip under. When you have a route that's maybe 6 to 15 yards or more, I would say, and it's inside breaking, that's when you would worry about attacking his leverage and trying to stack over the top. Now, when he does this wide receiver makes the right decision, but he runs the route incorrectly. So let's talk about what he does wrong. So he comes off the break and he's doing something we call a diamond release. So a diamond release is the same release that gets the DB's hips to flip open. And same idea, fellas. We're going to show a positive example of this in a second. But you want to attack his outside shoulder and his outside hip, selling the fade for 3 hard steps, right? So he does this little hesitation move off the line, and then he goes 1, 2, 3. But you see on his third step, he reaches outside of his frame. frame. That right hand comes, or his left hand swings up in the air, and he's dragging his back foot. So think about this. A DB in man-to-man coverage, where are his eyes supposed to be? His eyes are supposed to be watching my hips. So if he's looking at your hips, and at the third step of the break, you reach out and you strike the ground on your heel, you're dragging your back foot for balance, because when your foot is outside, like this is his frame right here, when your foot is outside your frame, you don't have any balance, you don't have any drive, so you drag for balance. That's why I hate the toe drag, because I feel like it's not needed if you have the right mechanics on the cut. But when you reach out, not only does this make the break slow, and you see how he takes an extra step right here, he's not driving out of the break immediately, that raises your pad level when you reach. So when you reach, that raises your pad level up in the air. DB sees that, and what's he going to do? He's going to put the brakes on. He's no longer thinking that it's a fade. He's able to recover on this thing and make a play and make this a very, very tough throw for the quarterback. So that is all based on the wide receiver. He had the right idea. And again, it's the same thing that we talk about over and over again. It's not necessarily about knowing how to run your routes every single time. And it's not necessarily about being the most explosive. You have great cuts, you're in and out of the breaks fast. It's a combination of both. You have to know when to do certain things, and you have to know the mechanics to execute it. So this wasn't a problem of knowing what to do. This is a problem of the mechanics of the movement. So let's play this again full speed, and then we're going to show an example of A.J. Brown running this exact same route with this exact same release, but him actually getting separation against obviously a more top-tier DB who's playing in the NFL, which is a lot harder to do. So we're going to look at this slant here from A.J. Brown. I want you to pay attention to the pad level he has, the stride, and how he has no indicators on this break, because that's what that raise of the pad level is. That's something we call an indicator. So he comes off the ball, 3 hard steps, no tell that he is making a break. That is how you guys get separation right there. He's trying to attack the outside shoulder, outside hip. Again, even in a real game scenario, pre-snap process. We come up, he's inside shade. I have a route that's 5 yards or less, and he's in press coverage man-to-man. I know I need to attack his outside shoulder, his outside hip on maybe a diamond release, if that's what you would like to use here. So he comes off the ball, he goes 1, again, hips and shoulders committed, and he's in a good pad level. That's the first step. He's got 2 more steps here, 2, 3, but there's no reach. He's cutting on a dime. There's no change in his pad level, and you see what that does to the DB. That commits his hips. He's not put on alert, and that makes it easy to swat him by, and you see how he's able to get way more separation. He's not getting stuck at the break point because that cut leg isn't way outside of his frame. So fellas, it's not, again, it's about knowing what to do, and it's about knowing the mechanics of what to do. So let's play this again full speed one more time. That's a great, perfect example here of a diamond. That's textbook diamond release. This is exactly how it should look. Speed, stride, and pad level commits to flip that DB's hips to that fade. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback, and it's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like our 8-week wide receiver gym and on-field workout schedule to follow, check out that very first link in the description below. Again, it's over 2 months of workouts for you guys mapped out on a day-to-day basis, exact sets, reps to do, and we give you an example of each exercise. So I hope this video helped you guys out, fellas. I'll see you next time.